December 13, 1974. Stanislav Kurilov stands at the stern rail of the Soviet cruise liner Sovetski Soyuz, 100 kilometers from Siargao Island in the Philippine Sea. He carries a towel that conceals a snorkeling mask and swim fins. These are his only tools for crossing open ocean before the crew's morning count reveals him missing. At 8:15 p.m. ship time, he drops the towel and jumps. The liner continues south at 20 knots, its lights fading into the storm. He has no flotation gear, no compass, no drinkable water. Within 48 hours, exhaustion will make it impossible to keep his head above water, and he will drown. Unless he reaches land first. Earlier that month, Kurilov worked at the Marine Biology Institute in Vladivostok. His research focused on Pacific coastal waters, where Soviet submarines operated. When his sister emigrated to Canada in 1972, KGB files marked him unreliable. That label blocked two joint projects with Jacques Cousteau in the early 1970s. The Soviets sent less qualified divers who held exit visas instead. Kurilov could not leave the country legally. Marine biologists with classified knowledge of submarine routes and sonar profiles were denied all exit visas. Any emigration request would trigger investigation, job termination, and prosecution of his family. October 1974. Kurilov sees a Leningrad newspaper ad for Cruise from Winter to Summer. The Sovetski Soyuz will sail from Vladivostok on December 8th, circle south toward the equator through international waters, and return without entering foreign ports. Because the ship never docks abroad, passengers require no passport and no exit visa. It is a legal gap in the Soviet travel system. Kurilov books passage immediately. He knows the route passes near the Philippines. If he can reach the Philippine Sea, he can jump into international waters and swim to land. The Soviets cannot prosecute him for defection if he never sets foot on foreign soil as a legal traveler. Aboard the liner, Kurilov locates a wall map in one of the halls showing the route with dates and coordinates. He calculates the ship will pass 100 kilometers from Siargao Island in the Philippine Sea on December 13th. That is his only window. The route then turns northeast, away from all land masses, back toward Vladivostok. He studies the stern layout. The aft section of the main deck is 14 meters above the waterline. Jumping forward or amidships risks detection by deck officers who conduct passenger counts every few hours. The stern is the only safe zone where he can clear the propeller wash and hydrofoil stabilizers and avoid immediate visual detection. Soviet exit visa policy in 1974 was absolute for marine biologists. Anyone working in Pacific coastal waters held classified knowledge of submarine routes and sonar profiles. Requesting emigration triggered KGB investigation. The result was job termination and family prosecution. Standard defection routes were closed to Kurilov. He could not request embassy asylum because he could not access foreign territory without an exit visa. He could not cross a land border for the same reason. The cruise to nowhere was the only legal way for him to reach international waters under Soviet flag. Once in those waters, he could jump and swim to a neutral nation without ever legally entering foreign soil. Crew protocol aboard the Sovetski Soyuz required passenger counts at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Kurilov jumped after the dinner count at 8:15 p.m., giving him approximately 10 hours before the morning count would reveal him missing. If officers conducted a random night inspection or another passenger reported him, the ship would reverse course and he would be recaptured before reaching safe distance. The liner's top speed was 20 knots. Kurilov's top swimming speed with fins was roughly 1 knot. If the crew turned back within the first hour, they would overtake him in minutes. He had to swim far enough and fast enough to be invisible in the darkness and storm before anyone noticed he was gone. 0 to 30 minutes post-jump. Kurilov hits the water and experiences cold shock. His breathing rate spikes and he gasps involuntarily despite 75-degree Fahrenheit water temperature. The reflex is uncontrollable. He fights to avoid inhaling seawater as his chest muscles spasm. He keeps his face in the water using the snorkel mask, forcing himself to exhale slowly and swim away from the ship's receding lights. The liner continues south at 20 knots. He swims west-southwest, aiming for the estimated position of Siargao Island. After 30 minutes, the ship's lights disappear over the horizon. He is alone in the Philippine Sea with no flotation device and no way to rest without sinking. Hour 2 to 4. The liner's lights have vanished. Kurilov attempts to navigate by Polaris and the Southern Cross, confirming his westward heading. He knows the stars. His marine biology training included celestial navigation for open water research voyages. But a tropical storm front moves in from the east, and cloud cover eliminates all star visibility. He can no longer verify his heading. The storm intensifies through the night. Rain hammers the water surface, and 2-meter swells lift and drop him every few seconds. He is forced to switch to swell pattern navigation, using the memory that the prevailing Pacific swell runs west-northwest in December. It is his only remaining reference. Hour 6 to 10. Kurilov swims by swell direction alone. He estimates heading by the angle at which waves lift and drop him. Without a compass, he knows a 10-degree error over 60 hours could carry him 15 kilometers off course. If he drifts too far north or south, he will miss Siargao Island entirely. The next landfall is 800 miles east in open Pacific. There is no second chance. He forces himself to maintain a consistent stroke rhythm, checking swell direction every few minutes by feel. The storm continues. Visibility is less than 50 meters in any direction. He cannot see land and cannot confirm his position. He swims on memory and dead reckoning. Hour 12. Dawn on December 14th. The storm has not lifted. Kurilov continues swimming through rain and 2-meter swells. He cannot see more than 50 meters ahead. Aboard the Sovietsky Soyuz, the morning passenger count reveals him missing. The crew reverses course to search. The ship's officers scan the water with binoculars, but poor visibility prevents them from spotting him. After 2 hours, the search is abandoned. The liner resumes its northward route to Vladivostok. Kurilov does not know the search has ended. He continues swimming west, measuring time by the slow rotation of daylight to dusk. He has been in the water for 16 hours. He has roughly 32 hours before muscle failure makes sustained swimming impossible. Hour 16 to 24, Day 1 afternoon. Kurilov's core temperature remains near 98 degrees Fahrenheit, but his arms and legs cool rapidly. His body diverts blood flow to his core through peripheral vasoconstriction, a survival reflex that protects the heart and brain. Muscle temperature in his limbs drops to 85 degrees. At that temperature, contraction strength decreases by 30% and fine motor control by 50%. His stroke becomes slower and less efficient. Even in 75-degree water, the body loses heat 25 times faster than in air. Continuous immersion depletes the glycogen stores that fuel shivering. He is not hypothermic yet, but the cold is moving inward. Thermoregulation mechanics. As muscles cool, nerve conduction velocity slows. The electrical signals that trigger contraction take longer to travel from brain to muscle fiber. Calcium release inside muscle cells becomes inefficient, reducing the force each fiber can generate. Kurilov's stroke rate drops from 30 strokes per minute to 25, then to 20. His legs begin to cramp. He cannot stop to rest because he has no flotation gear. Stopping means sinking. He forces himself to continue swimming, but each hour the effort required to maintain forward progress increases. His body is burning through its remaining energy reserves to keep his core warm. The clock is running down. Hour 30 to 40, Day 2 morning. Dehydration compounds muscle failure. Kurilov cannot drink seawater because the high sodium concentration would worsen dehydration and cause kidney damage. He has no method to collect rainwater. Blood volume decreases as his body loses water through respiration and skin. Lower blood volume reduces oxygen delivery to working muscles, triggering early fatigue. His stroke rate drops further. Research on open water swimmers in 70 to 75 degree water shows exhaustion typically occurs at 40 to 60 hours. Without flotation gear, exhaustion leads to inability to keep the head above water, then aspiration of seawater, then drowning within minutes. Hour 48, Day 2, evening. Kurilov periodically loses consciousness for short intervals. He hallucinates voices and images. His brain is deprived of glucose and oxygen as his body prioritizes the heart and lungs. His legs are nearly immobile. He relies primarily on arm strokes and weak flutter kicks to maintain forward progress. He estimates he is still 20 to 30 kilometers from Siargao Island based on swell patterns, but he has no way to confirm his position. The swim has lasted 2 full days. He is approaching the upper limit of human endurance in open water. If he does not sight land within the next 12 hours, muscle failure will make it impossible to continue. He will drown. Hour 52, Day 2, evening. Kurilov sees the dark silhouette of land 5 kilometers ahead. It is the first confirmation of his position in more than 50 hours. Relief is brief. Forward progress slows as a strong southward current pulls him parallel to the coast. The Mindanao current, intensified by storm runoff, pushes him at 1 to 2 knots, faster than his weakened stroke can counteract. He is being carried south along the reef line. He can see the island, but he cannot reach it. If the current carries him past the southern tip of Siargao, he will be swept into open Pacific. There is no landfall beyond. He has no strength left to swim back north. Hour 56 to 60. Night of Day 2 into Day 3. Kurilov is carried south along the reef line, unable to reach shore but also unable to turn back north. Muscle failure in his legs is nearly complete. His arms can manage only 10 to 15 strokes per minute in short bursts, then he must rest in a near-vertical flotation position, head barely above water. The current does not stop. He drifts south for 4 more hours. The island remains visible to his left but unreachable. His body is shutting down. He knows he has only hours left before he can no longer keep his head above water. Then, the current shifts. Hour 62. Early morning, December 15. A large wave lifts Kurilov and carries him over a shallow reef on the southern coast of Siargao. He is scraped across coral, disoriented, with lacerations on his chest and legs. The impact is violent, but the reef breaks the current. He is deposited in the calmer water of a lagoon on the lee side of the island. For the first time in 62 hours, he is not fighting the open ocean. The water is shallow enough to see the sandy bottom. The beach is 1 kilometer away across the lagoon. He has no feeling in his legs and limited strength in his arms. He must swim 1 more hour in darkness or he will die within sight of land. Hour 63 to 64. Kurilov swims across the lagoon in darkness. He periodically loses consciousness and resumes swimming when he regains awareness. Each time he wakes, he forces his arms to move, 1 stroke at a time. His legs drag behind him, useless. The lagoon is calm compared to the open ocean, but it is still 1 kilometer of water. He has no reserves left. His body is running on reflex alone. After an hour, he feels sand beneath his chest. He cannot stand. He crawls onto the beach of Siargao Island at dawn on December 15th. He has been in the water for nearly 3 full days and has swum an estimated distance between 70 and 100 kilometers. December 15, 1974. Local fishermen discover Kurilov on the beach. He is severely dehydrated and covered with coral lacerations. They report him to authorities in Cagayan de Oro, who transfer him to Manila for investigation. Philippine intelligence suspects he may be a Soviet intelligence plant testing defection routes. Cold War doctrine requires neutral nations to investigate defector claims before granting asylum. The Soviets cannot legally compel repatriation because the Philippines is not a Warsaw Pact signatory, but diplomatic pressure is intense. Manila holds Kurilov for 6 months while verifying his identity and assessing the risk of Soviet retaliation. He is questioned repeatedly. His story does not change. December 1974 to June 1975. The Soviet embassy in Manila demands Kurilov's immediate repatriation. They cite a 10-year in absentia sentence for treason. The Soviets argue he is a Soviet citizen who illegally abandoned a Soviet vessel in international waters. The Philippine government delays. They are not obligated to return him under international law because he did not commit a crime on Philippine soil, and the Philippines is not bound by Soviet extradition treaties. But Cold War neutrality is fragile. Manila cannot afford to alienate Moscow entirely. The investigation drags on for 6 months. Kurilov remains in detention, unsure whether he will be sent back to the USSR or allowed to emigrate. His fate depends on diplomacy, not law. June 1975. Canada grants Kurilov asylum. His sister is a Canadian resident, which strengthens his application. Canada refuses extradition for political crimes, and Philippine authorities release him into Canadian custody. The Soviets cannot compel repatriation because the Philippines is not a Warsaw Pact signatory, and Canada is protected by NATO alliances that make Soviet intervention diplomatically impossible. Kurilov emigrates to Vancouver. He later works as an oceanographer in the Arctic. His brother in the Soviet Union is fired from his job. Kurilov himself is sentenced in absentia to 10 years for treason, a sentence that will never be enforced because he never returns. The escape is complete. Kurilov's escape prompts the Soviet Ministry of Merchant Marine to implement stricter passenger manifests and twice-daily cabin inspections on all cruises to nowhere. The new protocol requires stewards to physically verify each passenger in their cabin at breakfast and dinner, with random spot checks during the night. But the procedural changes are incomplete. At least 2 other similar defections occur in 1979. Yuri Vitokin, a biologist, jumps from a cruise liner near Indonesia and swims to shore. An unnamed biologist from the MV Rus defects to the Philippines using the same method. The cruise to nowhere loophole remains exploitable for 5 more years before the Soviet government cancels the program entirely in 1980. Kurilov's case influences Cold War asylum doctrine for neutral nations. The 6-month investigation in Manila establishes a precedent. Defectors who reach neutral territory without committing crimes on foreign soil cannot be automatically repatriated under international law, even when the Soviet Union demands it. The precedent is tested repeatedly in the late 1970s, as other Soviet scientists and artists defect using similar methods. Each case follows the same pattern: detention, investigation, diplomatic pressure, and eventual asylum. The doctrine shifts incrementally toward protecting defectors who escape without violating the host nation's sovereignty. Kurilov's swim becomes a legal template as much as a physical feat. Kurilov lives in Canada for the rest of his life, working as an oceanographer until his retirement. He publishes his memoir in 1986 in an Israeli magazine called 22. The memoir details the swim, but reveals little about his emotional state. His writing is operational, not reflective. His brother in the Soviet Union never recovers his career. Other family members face years of scrutiny. The KGB monitors them for possible contact with Kurilov. None of them see him again until after the Soviet Union collapses in 1991. The escape is successful by every operational measure, but the human cost is paid by those who stayed behind. In 1980, the Soviet government cancels all cruises to nowhere. The program had operated for 8 years, offering Soviet citizens a rare taste of tropical waters without the bureaucratic burden of passports or visas. But 3 confirmed defections and unknown additional attempts make the program untenable. The legal gap that allowed marine biologists to reach international waters is closed. Future defectors must find other routes. Kurilov's method becomes impossible. His swim remains one of the longest open water escapes in Cold War history. Not because of the distance, but because he had no flotation gear, no compass, no drinkable water, and no second chance. He gambled that competence and physiology would outlast the clock. For 64 hours, they did.